Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Martin. In the wake of the Navy Yard shooting, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is ordering 2 separate reviews of security at U.S. defense facilities worldwide. One from the Pentagon, one from an independent panel. Meanwhile, more details are emerging about the mental problems of slain shooter Aaron Alexis. But as Heather Sells reports in tonight's top story, many questions remain.
We now know that Aaron Alexis had been receiving mental health treatment from VA hospitals since August, and that he suffered from a host of serious mental health problems, including paranoia. Despite this and several run-ins with the law over the years, the defense contractor was not stripped of his security clearance. That clearance allowed him to enter the Navy Yard with a shotgun and kill a dozen people.
Mr. Alexis had legitimate access to the Navy Yard as a result of his work as a contractor, and he utilized a valid pass to gain entry to the building.
Our people deserve safe and secure workplaces, wherever they are.
Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel is hoping that 2 separate security reviews will reveal the department's security gaps. One clue, a new Pentagon report underway before the attack. It reveals a problem with the screening process for contractors. The Inspector General found convicted felons routinely gain access to military facilities. The president, meanwhile, wants Congress to revisit gun control legislation. Alexis bought a shotgun and 24 shells just 2 days before the shootings.
The fact that we do not have a firm enough background check system is something that makes us more vulnerable to these kinds of mass shootings.
Alexis's mother has released an audio statement saying she is so very sorry.
I don't know why he did what he did, and I'll never be able to ask him why.
Authorities are still probing to learn why Alexis killed so many, how he planned his attack, who might have helped him, and what can be done to prevent another such tragedy. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Dr. Linda Mintle is a licensed family therapist and author, and she joins us now with more. Linda, a lot of attention is focusing on the shooter's mental status. Now, you can never predict that these kinds of things will happen, of course, but what are some of the warning signs?
Well, we're always looking for the typical signs of mental disorders, which are changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, irritability, mood swings. One of the things to think about, Mark, is that when we have young adults who are most always the shooters in these cases, this is when mental illness really blossoms. So conditions like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder really come into their fullness at these stages in life. So looking for those typical signs of depression where it's above and beyond the normal for most people.
When you see some of these characteristics being displayed in someone, Linda, what is the best way to help?
Well, law enforcement is very clear that we need to tell somebody, no matter what we think, because one of the things that we know, they looked at 37 of these mass shootings, and they found that in every single case, the shooter telegraphed his intentions to somebody. Now, people didn't always tell because they didn't really know what to make of it. Sometimes they didn't really think the person was serious. It's always easier to do sort of Monday morning quarterbacking with those kinds of things. But if you're at all concerned, you should tell either a law enforcement, 911, an administrator at a school, whomever, because those kind of symptoms can be picked up if somebody is notified.
For the Navy Yard shooter, do you think this was just a case of someone slipping through the cracks, or were warning signs ignored?
You know, it's so difficult to really figure out who is going to actually act on these shootings. We know the 5 stages of shooters where they fantasize, they plan, they get weapons, they practice, and then they make the actual attack. But what we don't know is because they're not usually really connected to an intimate other in a significant way, people can engage these people on an hour or two, can be with them in a coffee shop, maybe in a classroom, and you really don't know the intentions. And I think that's one of the things that makes this so frightening, is that there isn't somebody in their life typically who's paying attention to the long-term patterns of anger and explosions and irritability and the other signs. So it is difficult to predict, unfortunately.
At what point does a mental health issue warrant treatment at a hospital or institution?
Well, anytime you see signs of depression, and anger is one of the clear signs of depression that we see, anytime somebody is acting in ways that are above and beyond the normal everyday reactions to things, poor coping mechanisms, anger outbursts, fascinations with guns. And while we know that violent video games may not be a causal factor in shooters, we know that those kinds of media can fuel people. So anytime you see something that is persistent, that looks like a pattern, you should contact someone and get that person in some type of treatment.
Okay, Dr. Linda Mintle, as always, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.